I want to thank Rodney Zarb for becoming my latest subscriber. Thank you very much. So Tna Impact was a live show from Indiana, Pennsylvania. And the show starts off with these three pseudo security schmucks that are making an attempt to stop Aces and Eights from entering the building. And obviously they weren't going to do that, and Aces and Eights enters the building. Then you have James Storm out. He comes to the ring and he basically talks about the fact that he asked AJ Styles for a fight, and that's what he got. And then we see AJ Styles standing on the steps in the crowd, and then Storm talks about his being attacked by Aces and Eights, and then he has a brief exchange with Taz. And then Storm calls out Aces and Eights basically as a group, saying there's no really sense in calling one person when all of them are basically going to show up. So he calls out the entire group. And then Bad Influence comes out. Daniels gets on the mic and he talks about that he has a solution to how to deal with Aces and Eights, and that's reforming Fortune. And then Kaz calls AJ Styles, who's standing in the crowd, and he wants AJ Styles to come down and join them so they can reform Fortune. Then a few more words are exchanged, and then Storm and Bad Influence exchange blows. Kaz kicks Storm in the groin, and he goes down, and then Bad Influence leaves the ring. AJ is still watching, and then Aces and Eights decides to come to the ring with Storm down on the mat. They come down without Bully Ray and Devon. And then Mr. Anderson grabs Storm and kind of holds him up. And then the other members pull out a table from under the ring, and they bring it into the ring, and they basically set the table up. And then Mr. Anderson, looks like he's attempting to put Storm through the table. And then dumbass Joseph Park comes out, and Wes Briscoe sees him and charges up the ramp, and Park knocks him down, and then he knocks Garrett Bischoff down, and then comes to the ring and he knocks Mr. Anderson down. And at the same time, D'Lo Brown, Mike Knox, and Director of Chaos throw Storm out of the ring. And then eventually all 6 members of Aces and Eights are beating down on Joseph Park. And then Bully Ray and Devon finally come to the ring, and you have Mike Knox and DOC about to put Joseph Park through the table, but then Bully Ray tells him no. So then Bully Ray and Devon come into the ring, and they execute a 3D on Joseph Park through the table, which I have to admit was pretty nice. And they leave Joseph Park laying. So then they come back from the commercial break, and they show Joseph Park being carried out on a stretcher, and Bully Ray gets on the mic and he basically talks about Aces and Eights taking out all the heroes, and that Hogan is the only one left, and he wants to confront Hogan, face to face later on in the show. Now, obviously this is a continuation of the dominance that we saw last week. I thought that, you know, the segment was good. It basically continued. It was a lot more focused this time. And it takes out one more quote-unquote hero and continuing to, you know, steer things toward the inevitable that I have been talking about for the last several weeks. So, okay, good progression. So then we had a women's match. Taryn Terrell against Tara. And it was so refreshing to see Tara come out without Mr. Duh. Him pressing her over his head. It's great not to see that nonsense. I mean, Tara actually looked comfortable just being the heel that she should have been all these months. So I was, you know, happy to see that. Now there have been rumors going around that Tara's going to take some time off. I think it has something to do with, you know, her running her new restaurant in Chicago, and I really don't know how long she's going to be gone, if all this is true. But regardless of that, match was alright. I mean, Tara, you know, carried Taryn Terrell most of the match, and Taryn Terrell wins with a roll-up. Now, someone asked me the other day if Taryn Terrell had an actual finisher. And I said yes. It's a roll-up. Let's see. 3 weeks ago, you had the tag team match. She pinned Gail Kim with a roll-up. 2 weeks ago, the singles match against Gail Kim. Pinned her with a roll-up. And last night, against Tara, roll-up. There's your answer. Taryn Terrell's finisher is a roll-up. Taryn Terrell, okay, nice suplex, but still, there's still not enough progression. I understand why they're pushing her, and you pretty much knew she was going to win this match because, you know, first she beats Gail, and now she beats Tara. And, you know, and speaking of Gail, whatever happened to this program between those two? I guess beating Gail Kim pretty much did it, huh? Okay. But maybe we'll see more from them. I don't know. I mean, it all goes back to the same issue. There are not enough women in the division to do anything. And that's why you're repeating stuff. So then we had Robbie E and Mr. Duh backstage. Yeah. So then we had Rob Terry come out to the ring, and then Robbie E comes out and basically, for lack of a better word, he presents Mr. Duh. I didn't really care for this match much. I mean, Rob Terry basically dominated the majority of the match, and he wins the match. I mean, I don't understand why, if you're going to push Terry as a face, which I think is a mistake. I already talked about how he should be pushed. But if you're going to push him as a face, he has already why do you still have him engaged with Robbie E. He's already smashed the guy twice. Lockdown and then the impact after lockdown. There's nothing else to do there. So why continue to have Terry engaging with Robbie E? I don't get it. You have to move him on to someone else. Why not have him get involved with a member of Aces and Ace? I mean, if you're pushing him to an eventual, contender, which I don't really see that happening, not as a face. But if you're thinking of doing that, then you have got to move him on. It doesn't make any sense to continue this with Robbie E. So that was that. So then you had Bad Influence backstage, and they approached Robert Roode about reforming Fortune. They figured since, James Storm, wasn't going to work out, they decided to go to Robert Roode. They figure, Daniels, Kaz, Roode, and AJ Styles all, reform as Fortune. And Roode basically says, well, what about, Austin? And they said, oh, let's just worry about the four of us for now. And then they leave. And then you see Aries, listening in onto the conversation. So, whatever. And then they did another recap of Jeff Hardy, being carried out on a stretcher and taken to the hospital following the Full Metal Mayhem match with Bully Ray. And then Mike Tenay is talking about rumors of Hardy quitting the business. Okay, I mean, I don't see that happening. I mean, I know it's, the typical kayfabe stuff when, you want to, turn what could be a serious injury, if there is one involving Hardy, and making it part of the storyline. Okay, I get it, but having signed a new contract, he's not quitting. But yes, it's storyline driven, I get it. So then they show the video package hyping the return of Chris Sabin. And Chris Sabin will be in the X Division qualifying match next week, where he'll take on Zema Ion and a third contender. Well, if you've already looked at the spoilers for next week, you already know who the person is. So, and even if you didn't look at the spoilers, you know Sabin is winning the match next week. I mean, you're not going to hype him up to lose. So, you already know he's winning next week. And then that, of course, will create, the scenario for the next X Division championship match, which will be Kenny King, Petey Williams, and eventually Chris Sabin. And I'm still going to say this about these new X Division rules. The three-way concept is going to hinder this division, because a lot of the one-on-one matchups, potential one-on-one matchups that you can have, are not going to happen because of these rules. And it's just turning the X Division into just guys just getting in the ring, just all this randomness. And I don't know, oh god, the X Cam is coming back next week. Oh boy. So then we had a match for the World Tag Team Championship. Chavo Guerrero and Hernandez against Robert Roode and Austin Aries. And you had Bad Influence sitting at ringside providing commentary. was a good match. Basically, the match ended where Kaz was trying to interfere, or looked like more he was like distracting the ref. And then Daniels comes in the ring and he grabs Hernandez and sends Hernandez into Rude, and Rude's holding Hernandez, and Daniels attempts a clothesline and Hernandez moves out of the way. Daniels ends up clotheslining Rude, and then Rude goes down. Chavo comes off the top rope with the frog splash and gets the pin, and Chavo Guerrero Hernandez retain the titles. Now, I was very surprised with the result. I expected Rude and Aries to regain the titles, because for them to regain the titles now, you want to have some time to reestablish themselves, or reestablish them as the tag team champions, so that you can finally start pushing the jack-off match at Slammiversary. Now, I really don't know why Hernandez and Chavo Guerrero are the champions. Outside of the state of Texas, they're not getting over. You can't have every pay-per-view in Texas. You can't hold every Impact in Texas. If that were the case, then they'd be over like a mother. But since it's not the case, why do you still have the belts on these two? So I didn't get the result, but if this means a three-way at Slammiversary, why? Didn't we see this match already? Now, if the title change happens later, okay, I could see how you could still have time to reestablish Rude and Aries as champions and get it ready for the jack-off match. But really, this should already, be happening with Rude and Aries as the champions now, and reestablishing themselves as the champions. If you have Chavo and Hernandez as the champions, then what does that mean? I don't know. So then we had Matt Morgan talking about Hogan's mistakes. That's pretty much all he's been talking about. And he says he has the solution. And he has invited Hogan to the ring. So then we see Matt Morgan come out to the ring, and he basically says, once again, that he has the solution to Hogan's mistakes. He calls Hogan out, and Hogan comes to the ring, and Morgan basically tells Hogan that, there's no one else left to deal with aces and eights, and that he should be the one that goes up against Bully Ray. But he says that he'll do it for a price, and that price being getting a title shot against Bully Ray at Slammiversary. But Hogan naturally tells him no, that Hogan will confront Bully Ray himself, and then Hogan leaves the ring, and that was that. Okay, I mean, we all know where this is leading. So okay. So then we had the Women's Championship. Velvet Sky defending against Mickie James. Like I said, this match was way too early. But the state of the women's division, the lack of contenders, means you have to do this match now because you got nothing else. This match should have been put on hold until Slammiversary, Now you're doing it now. And even if Mickie James turns heel later, you're still taking something away because they've already met. And this was not a good match. Now the only positive about it is that, you know, Velvet Sky worked her injury or used the previous injury. I really don't know what the condition of her knee is, but even if she's not 100%, the fact that she worked it into the match was a positive. It was a nice angle. And she wins with an inside cradle. So, but we didn't see any further tinges from Mickie James. I mean, after Velvet won the match, yeah, Mickie, you know, banged her elbow on the mat in frustration, but, you know, that doesn't necessarily indicate further tinges of turning heel. They should have had her do something that further shows that progression of her turning heel, and they didn't do that. ODB as a ref. Now, the thing about ODB as a referee, you know what would really be nice? If ODB actually, because I'm a traditionalist, I think it would be refreshing to see ODB the next time that she refs a women's match come out in a referee shirt. Well, she's already got the black pants, and come out with black shoes and maybe have her hair up in a bun. And maybe it would actually show some credibility with her as a referee. I mean, I think that would be refreshing to see. Instead of her with a t-shirt with handprints on her tits and, you know, black headband on. I think that would be pretty refreshing if we saw that. So then we had Bully Ray and Devon talking backstage. Bully Ray talked about the possibility of Jeff Hardy being done for good, as well as his confrontation with Hogan later on. So that was that basically. Then we had Hogan and Hogan's daughter. Bzzz. Bzzz. So then Bully Ray comes out and he reads a list of the names of the wrestlers that Aces and Eights have taken out. Interesting that he also named the Pope, you know, since the Pope is no longer with TNA. And he said, you know, they're all victims and that there's only one name left, Hogan. So he calls out Hogan, and Hogan comes out, and Bully Ray basically tells Hogan, you know, that he sees one thing, and that's pure fear. Says that Hogan fears him, and that he's going to end Hulkamania. And then Hogan responds by saying that Hulkamania will never die. So then Bully turns his hat backwards and he spits in Hogan's face, and Hogan turns away, and Bully's, you know, Ray's laughing and playing to the crowd. And then it happens. Okay, you're gonna have to excuse me here because it's comedy from this point on. Hogan goes into his time machine. Invisible time machine. We don't see it, but Hogan's the only one that enters it. And he probably goes back to what? 1985. Hogan tears his t-shirt off. And he starts shaking his fists. Points at Bully Ray. And Bully Ray points back at him. Bully Ray throws the punch. Hogan blocks it. And then Hogan goes into his obligatory 3-punch sequence. Whips Bully Ray into the ropes, but Bully Ray stops and leaves the ring. So you're going to have your badass World Heavyweight Champion retreat from Hogan. Oh, but it gets worse. The other members of Aces and Eights come out to the ring. And Bully Ray tells them to surround Hogan. So they climb up onto the ring apron. And they're all in the process of entering the ring. Surrounding Hogan. They're closing in. And then the lights go out. Oh gee, who's gonna show up? The Ultimate Warrior? Oh, Kevin Nash maybe. Oh, shocking. It's Sting. So Sting is standing there with his bat extended toward Hogan. And then Aces and Eights are reacting as if Sting is going to join them or something. And then Sting slowly turns to Bully Ray and knocks his hat off his head with the bat. And then oh. Oh my God. I'm gonna get through this. We proceed to see Aces and Eights. Let's see. How many members are there, Aces and Eights? There are 8 of them, correct? We see 8 members of Aces and Eights get turned back by Hogan and Sting. Eight members turned back by Hogan and Sting. And I don't give a damn if Sting has a baseball bat. 2 turning back 8. So the overabundance of domination that we saw last week from Aces and Eights and kind of led into this show completely negated. It's gone. So after Aces and Eights retreats from the fear of Hogan and Sting sending them on their way, Sting once again points the bat in Hogan's face, and then he leaves. And then Hogan has this dumb, confused look on his face, and the show ends. Now, I've heard a few today, and I'm sure I'll hear many more as I listen to other reviews about what happened last night. There will be a lot of people ranting about this, but not me. Why would I rant about something that I expected to happen? If you're a regular listener of my commentaries, I have been talking about this since I started this. And you know what I think happened? I think what I talked about last week happened. Maybe it didn't, but maybe it did. Hogan took the ratings from the last 2 episodes of Impact. He shoved them into Dixie's face. He said, "See these ratings? These ratings are the reason why we need to do this." And last night, you saw the beginning of this. What will the end of this be? And how will this affect the future of TNA? I'm Tasmart 2002, and that was my TNA Impact Analysis for April 25th, 2013. If you're listening to me on YouTube, please leave your comments below. Click the like or dislike button. And if you subscribe, I would really appreciate it. If you're listening to me on the Wrestling News Talk Facebook page, I'm a new administrator on that particular Facebook page, representing Wrestling News Talk. You can leave your comments below and click the like button if you like what I've been saying. If you have any questions about TNA or wrestling in general, you can get at me on Twitter, TAZMARK2002. And if your comments exceed the 140, send me an email, tasmart2002@gmail.com. Before I end this, I want to thank Andre Corbillo for answering my question on his latest Q&A video. I really appreciate it, man. You'll always be a friend, and I appreciate everything you've done for me as far as telling people about me. I just want to thank you. But let me end it with this. It was an okay show. Bombarded by Hogan. Naturally. Obviously. Unfortunately. In a previous commentary, I talked about what type of ego we were going to see from Hogan. We were going to see a suppressed ego or a charging elephant ego, meaning Hogan's just going to do whatever he wants and he doesn't care who he runs over or steps on in order to do it. The elephant is about to charge. Are we the ones that get run over? I'm Tasmart 2002, gone.